Okay, another week of MLS have just finished. Well, it actually finished yesterday, and the reason why I did not do this yesterday was because I was editing the vlog that I did between the Quakes and Manchester United, which is already up, so make sure you guys check that out. But yeah, let's talk about all these 10 games before I'm going to be going to do the preview for the midweek games, and I'm going to be only previewing 2 of the 3 games because there is going to be one game that I'm going to be talking about tomorrow, and that, of course, is the Quakes game between the Seattle Sounders, and I will do that tomorrow instead of today. And, of course, later on tonight, I'm going to do another late night upload for the power rankings. And, yeah, but first of all, let's begin with the review of what happened this week in MLS, and there was definitely a lot of interesting things happen, including a resort that not many people would have thought that would come true, and probably might be the surprising resort of the year. And there was also some controversy too, because, you know, this is MLS, there's always controversial called no matter what you look at it. But first, we're going to start with the first game, and this one did not have any controversy. Instead, we had a goal-scoring machine known as Joseph Martinez, who have now broke the record for the most hat-trick ever in MLS. And it's crazy to think that he has broke this record only playing in the league for 1.5 years. I mean, that's just insane that he can do that, and that he's already broken the hat-trick record, which is now his with 6 hat-trick. And that might not be the only record that he's going to break this year. I mean, he is now up to 22 goals. He's only 5 away from breaking, or not 5 away, but 6 away from breaking the all-time MLS record for goal scored in a single season, held by both Wando and BWP. And I'll tell you what, he's definitely going to break that. And I'm just hoping that when he breaks that record, he does not face against the Quakes. I know the Quakes are playing Atlanta in September, and I'm just hope the last thing I want is Joseph Martinez to score goals against us, and then he breaks the record in front of Wando's face. I mean, that would be just, it would definitely be a kind of nightmare scenario. But, you know, what can you say about Joseph Martinez that hasn't been said always? He is just probably the most lethal striker that we have ever seen in MLS. I mean, he is putting numbers that is similar to what Ronaldo and Messi has done. And many people don't remember that this was a guy that flopped at Torino, and that he was struggling in Europe, and that when he comes to MLS, and even though a lot of people know that he is a very kind of decent striker, nobody thought that he would be this good. Like, he is absolutely owning this league right now, and I'll tell you what, we might be able to see the first ever player to get 30 plus goals this season, because he is on verge of potentially getting 35 or 36. And another thing that is also very impressive about him is that he has now scored more goals than the games that he has played. I mean, he has scored 44 goals in 43 games. That's just incredible. Like, that is just completely unheard of. And if he didn't get injured, probably in the first season, when he was there at MLS, he probably would have broke that record by now. I mean, that's how good he is. But talk about the overall game. Well, DC United did kind of made it interesting. They did get the first goal in this game, and then, you know, Joseph Martinez got the equalizer. And I know DC United fans will say, well, it looked like Osted was fouled by Martinez there, as Martinez kind of like bumped into Osted, but I don't think that's a foul. I think Martinez has the right to try to go for the ball. And we always talked about how whenever the goalkeeper get bumped by one of the attacking player, and how that's kind of like an instant foul. Well, I feel like there should be some leverage in terms of that, and I think that is an incident where when an attacker does go for the ball and trying to hit it into the back of the net, then I think it's perfectly legal, even though he kind of bumps into the goalkeeper. And then after that, DC United pretty much just they were trying to bunker in this game, and just like the game earlier this season, they were very unsuccessful in terms of trying to bunker down and get a victory in this. But yeah, I mean, Atlanta back on track, back to their best, and for DC United, well, all that talk about potentially maybe they might make it to the playoffs might be started to damper a little bit, because even though this team has a lot of home games at their new Audi field, if they cannot win on the road, it doesn't matter either way. Like, I think I'm not quite sure if this is actually true, but even if they win every single home game from now, they would still probably not make the playoffs, depending on how other team does. But yeah, but moving on into the next game, the Sounders got a win against the Whitecaps, and all of a sudden the Sounders are started to figure out how to score, because they just put another 2-goal in the back of the net. This time it was Nicholas Ladero with the brace, and it's hard to believe that that was actually his first 2 goals this season. I mean, it is crazy to say that with the type of player that he is for the past couple of seasons for the Sounders, that was only his first goal so far this season. And then the Whitecaps, of course, had a man sent off. Juarez got sent off around the 73rd minute, and this was a game that certainly it was a game that is more important for Vancouver than it is for the Sounders, because I still think for the Sounders, even though they got this win, I think it's just one of those wins where they're playing against a struggling team, and that when they probably will face another tougher team, they will probably lose that one. Although, saying that, they did draw against Atlanta last week. And for the Whitecaps, well, they are in trouble. Not only this team is having problems now winning games at home, but now they have problem winning games on the road. And you wouldn't think that this Whitecaps team, with the style that Carl Robinson puts for this team, you wouldn't think this is a team that usually struggle on the road. But now they are starting to lose games on the road, and now they are sliding down the table, and just their playoff chance is just slipping away. And I just think that if this Whitecaps team does not start to figure this out, and just not solely rely on Alphonso Davies to carry that team, because I really think that that's been the case for most of these games, and it's just ridiculous to see a team relying on a 17-year-old to trying to bail them out of trouble and trying to get them wins. But they need to find another playmaker, and they can't just keep relying on Davies to do that, because that's just that is just unheard of. If you are a team that is relying on a teenager to help carry your team, then you are a very bad team, and that you're probably not making the playoffs. Speaking of teams that potentially are slipping away, Chicago is a team that is definitely on that path, and they have now lost 4 straight after they've gone on a 5-game unbeaten run. They lost to TFC in this game. Javinko and Osorio with the goal. It's hard to believe Javinko has only scored 5 goals this season. I mean, this has been just a very disappointing year by Javinko. Probably his worst ever since he come to MLS. And, Chicago did get a goal in this game by Nikolic. But I think the reason why Chicago lost this one is, once again, their goalkeeper. And I'm pretty sure a lot of Fire fans know that Richard Sanchez is just not a good goalkeeper, and that he is just single-handedly costing this team game. I mean, I'm pretty sure Fire fans will kind of like have something that Quakes fan has in common, which is that both of their goalkeeper are costing them points and costing them wins in the game. And in this one, both of those goals, I really think Sanchez probably could have saved it. And for TFC, it wasn't a pretty win, but at this point, they'll take any wins that is possible. I mean, TFC has been just on a long, long winless run, and they finally broke it in this game. And I said before in the preview, if this team is going to legitimately try to get back into the playoff picture, they got to start a winning streak. They got to put this together. And, looking at this game, I'm still not convinced that they will potentially put this winning streak together. I mean, I know that they finally got Josie Altidore back in this game, and I just think that, for TFC they need to show a little bit more in terms of these next couple of games. Now, they do play against Fire again, and this time it's going to be at BMO Field, so that's another chance for them to get some points. But like I said, they need to start a winning streak because they're still 9 points behind the team that is just above the red line, which is the New England Revolution right now. But yeah, next up, speaking of another team that is struggling and sliding down the table and have their playoff chances started to diminish, the Union is another team that is, and they lose to a Galaxy team this is a Galaxy team that is just red hot right now. I mean, Zlatan just pretty much taught those young kind of Union defender a lesson in this game. He was absolutely amazing once again. I mean, the goal that he created for Ola Kamara was just textbook kind of play. I mean, Zlatan basically played an absolute dime of a ball up the middle, right on the play to Kamara, and obviously Kamara is not going to miss those kind of chances. And then Zlatan himself scoring a goal in the 63rd minute. And I'll tell you what, if you are a team that still concede a goal and you concede it to Michael Ciani, then you are going to lose. I mean, the Union did get the lead early on, but in the second half, it was just a Zlatan show. I mean, that he absolutely single-handedly destroyed this Union team. And, for this Galaxy, they are on this very hot streak, and maybe this hot streak will definitely push them to get to the playoffs. But you wonder, once they do get to the playoffs, then what's next? Like, is Zlatan going to have, enough does he have enough in the tank to try to make an impact? And, this Galaxy team, they definitely have a very good attack, but the defense is always going to be a question. And also, you question their depth too. Like, if one of these guys on the attack is going to go down, then who is exactly going to replace? And they don't really have, a key kind of replacement for that. But as of now, I think Galaxy fans won't care. They will be happy that they're on this winning streak, and they're going to be heading into this El Tráfico against LAFC with all sorts of momentum. And for the Union, well, like I said, they are just slipping down the table. And, they had a kind of a good run in June, but as the calendar month turned to July, that has not been a pretty month for them. And, this is a team that, alongside with probably 5 other teams in the Eastern Conference, that is right now battling for one of the free spots. Although, actually, it's not now one of the free spots. Now it's back down to 2 spots because, spoiler alert, Columbus, of course, won, and they started to pull that gap back between 4th and 7th. But, they need to start to maybe find some wins in them because, they can't not afford to continue to lose it. And especially losing games at home too. I mean, you cannot expect to make the playoffs if you keep losing games at home. And that, knowing the Union, that is also not very good on the road. Those are the games that at home just means a lot when they're not really good on the road at the same time. But moving on to the next one, again, another team that is kind of struggling right now and sliding down the table, although this team is still technically in the playoffs, and they still have a 4-point gap between 6th and 7th place, and that of course is New England, who once again lose against the Red Bulls, although this one, I kind of expected them to lose that one. I mean, the Red Bulls are just really good at home. I mean, they kind of hold their firm for about an hour, but eventually the Red Bulls broke through with Royer scoring in the 69th minute, and then BWP basically finished them off to get the 2-0 win for the Red Bulls. And yeah, for New England, This loss is definitely gonna hurt, but at the same time, they were playing against a Red Bulls team that was very good, and the fact that this was on the road and the Revs, like other teams that they are fighting for the playoffs, are not very good on the road. This is one of those that they're just gonna have to brush off. And now, if I look forward to the next couple of games for the Revs, yeah, those are gonna be huge and massive game, because if you look ahead of the schedule for the New England Revolution, they got a game against Orlando City next, and that is one of those teams that is fighting for that last couple of spot in the playoff race. And then they have to play the Union twice, and that could maybe determine whether or not if Philly can themselves maybe potentially get themselves past New England and get into that playoff line. And then if you even look further into the schedule and look at the September schedule, boy, it is very brutal for New England. I mean, that is a very murderous road kind of stretch. And you wonder if New England does not get this together and they do not at least win 3 out of 4 in their next couple of games, this team is in trouble. They have a really tough schedule on September's, and by the time they got out of that September schedule and they just completely collapsed in those tough games, then they could be one of those teams that a couple of weeks ago I thought they were potentially automatically locked to maybe make it to the playoffs, to now a team that actually might miss the playoffs because of the bad run that they've been on lately. But moving on to the next game, and this is the one that I'm going to be focusing a lot, and this is the one that a lot of people is going to be talk about because of the controversy that surrounded this penalty, which I of course will get to that. But this was also the second week in a row where we saw a team leading 2-1 heading into the 85th minute or later, and they end up losing the game 3-2. We had that happen last week with the Revs against the Galaxy, and like I said, there was a lot of controversial call in this game. And the first one actually came right around the 58th minute where Pino, of course, scored this goal. But Columbus is kind of arguing the fact that they should have got a foul on the other end when Jarzy Zardes was going on the attack. And then Zardes basically kind of it looked like he got stepped on by one of the Orlando City player, but it looked like on the replay, I actually don't think Zardes actually got stepped on. And then that's when we got to this in the 88th minute and talking about whether or not if RJ Allen did actually got bumped in the box by one of the Orlando City player. And this is where a lot of Orlando City players says that he clearly did not got bumped by one of their player, and that RJ Allen basically just did a Neymar in the box and just go full down simulation to win his team a penalty. And when I look on the replay again today, it looked like he did dive and he did the Neymar move. And yeah, it's unfortunate that it has happened, and this will definitely fuel another kind of evidence to all those critics of VAR about why VAR of course suck. And I was actually surprised that they didn't. I'm not quite sure did they look at VAR or not. If they did, then I'm surprised they still got that one wrong, because in my book that was never a penalty. RJ Allen basically just dived to win a penalty, and that was a crucial point of the game too, because if that penalty kick did not reward, it would have been still 2-1 Orlando City. And even if this goal by Will Trapp, which, by the way, this is not only going to be the goal of the week, but this might be the goal of the year. I mean, Will Trapp basically hit an absolute laser shot from 38 yards out, and this is kind of like one of those shots that a lot of defender, when they try to take that shot, it just go into row Z. But 1 out of a million time, maybe you can actually connect it pretty well, and then you maybe hit it to the top right corner, and that is exactly what happened with Will Trapp in this instant. I mean, he connected beautifully, and just absolutely smashed that ball into the top right. Joe Bendick, the Orlando City goalkeeper, had absolutely no chance of saving that. And, that goal probably shouldn't have been the winning goal because of the penalty kick controversy, and that should have been the equalizer. And yeah, this is a very tough one for Orlando City to swallow. And I don't want to say that Orlando City don't deserve to lose this game, because there was time where they had that Columbus looked pretty good in this game, but it's kind of disappointing when you have a game that is kind of ruined. And we had games that has been ruined by controversial call, and this was just one of them. And I just hope that maybe by the end of the year, when Orlando City is in that fight for the playoffs and they just missed the playoff by maybe 1 point, this could be the game that a lot of Orlando City fans gonna talk about and say that should have been the one that they should have got a draw, and that is the one that ultimately cost them to make the playoffs, and it wasn't even their fault. So, but other than that, for Columbus, this is a big win for them. I mean, this is the one that really is what they desperately needed. Consider how bad they've been going on this bad run, and now they did kind of stretch a little bit in terms of that gap between themselves and the red line. Remember, they were, I think, 5 or 4 points away from below the red line, and it was getting kind of intense. And that I even said that it looks like now there's going to be 3 spots up for grabs in the Eastern Conference. But with this win, they did kind of pull it away a little bit from those teams that is looking outside in, because the team that is looking outside in, like Chicago and Philly, all lost their games. But now heading into the 2 derbies. The first one, Houston versus FC Dallas in the Texas Derby, end up in a 1-1 draw, which means that this is going to be the 6th or the 5th time in the last 6 Texas Derby that it has ended in a draw. And there was definitely fireworks early on in this game. Matt Hedges scoring in the first minute, and then 7 minutes later, only for Mauro Menoutas to get the equalizer in the 8th minute. And then as the game goes on, I thought FC Dallas was the better team in this one, and they definitely had more of the chances in this one, but they just could not put the ball into the back of the net. And that started to be a little bit of, well, I wouldn't say that started to be a bit of an issue, but one thing that I'm seeing with FC Dallas in terms of their goal scoring is that they've been relying on a couple of guys that you wouldn't think that they would be goal scorer. And you would think that the guys that is the goal scorer for them would be like Roland Lamar or Maxi Urruti, or even when Mauro Diaz did not left this team before. And now it seemed like Urruti is struggling to score goals, and Roland Lamar missed a couple of chances in this game, and it just feels like eventually they are going to run out of that luck in terms of relying guys that are not supposed to be the goal scorer that they're relying on. And yeah, but to be fair, you got to credit to FC Dallas in terms of how the teams are still scoring goals despite the fact that their main guys are not scoring the goals for them. And I think even the front office of FC Dallas acknowledged the fact that their main goal scorer did not really, well, their main goal scorer is really struggling to try to produce the goal for them, which is why they did made a very surprising trade to get Domenico Boggi from the Rapids, and they got him while trading away Kellen Acosta to the Rapids. And the reason why I say this is a surprising move is that, I didn't think that Boggi was going to leave the Rapids ever. I thought he was going to stay there for a while. I mean, Boggi is one of those players that a lot of people don't talk about, how he's a very good goal scorer because he plays in that Rapids team that is not very good. And with Kellen Acosta going to the Rapids, I mean, that is a huge, huge blow to his career. And this could also be a big blow to the U.S. men's national team too, because I talk about how Acosta and how he's been struggling ever since he come back from that leg injury, And yes, he has struggling a lot this season, but I just don't think that it deserved for him to get exiled to the Rapids. And this is no disrespect to the Rapids, but this was a guy that was linked with some of the most promising young kind of development club in Europe. Got teams like PSV were gonna potentially get him, and now he's gonna be going to the Rapids. And you wonder, with him going to the Rapids, does that mean that it will really damage his hope to go to Europe, and might damage his hope to go to the U.S. men's national team? I mean, it's definitely a very surprising move. And I think in some way you could say that this is a big kind of signing for the Rapids because, they finally get a pretty good quality kind of player in their midfield, and that might be like the first piece for them to potentially start a little bit of a rebuild to try to get their team back on top. But it just kind of surprised to see that Acosta got shipped out of FC Dallas, and this was a rumor that never materialized until like just yesterday. Like, this was just, it just came out of nowhere where FC Dallas decided that, okay, Kellen Acosta, say goodbye to your hometown team, but we're gonna ship you off to Colorado, and instead we're gonna get Baji. I mean, that was definitely a very kind of surprising move, but I'm pretty sure that this is definitely gonna help FC Dallas in terms of the goal scoring threat, because Baji is a very good kind of goal scorer if he does get the service, which I'm pretty sure they will. And I also wonder, when is FC Dallas eventually going to start finding a replacement for Mauro Diaz, because right now they haven't really find a plan to try to replace Diaz in that central attacking mid row. And we're going to see if they're going to maybe do it in the summer transfer window or wait till the winter transfer window. But going back to this game, like I said, FC Dallas were the better team, and they probably should have won that. Houston did had a goal disallowed in the 63rd minute, which was rightfully disallowed because I forgot who exactly that was offside there that made the pass back into oh god, I keep forgetting. I didn't watch this game, and I only watched the highlight a couple of days ago, so I forgot exactly what happened in most of the event in this game. But I know for a fact that FC Dallas was by far the better team in this game. But going into the other derby, the Rocky Mountain Derby, RSL, what happened? You were a team that is just very good at home, and you were up 2-0 in this game. After the 18th minute, when I saw RSL was leading 2-0 against the Rapids, I thought, okay, yep, this is done. RSL is going to win this big, because, when RSL get that kind of commanding lead at home, they usually do not throw away. And yet, they did throw away in this game. Jack McBean scoring a penalty in the 33rd minute, and then Serena completes the comeback for the Rapids in the 88th minute. And it's funny how RSL, the two games that they have dropped points at home, both of them are against teams that is near the bottom of the Western Conference. I mean, they dropped points against the Quakes a couple of weeks ago, and now they drop points against their Rocky Mountain Derby neighbor Colorado. And these are the points that you just cannot drop RSL. RSL right now, I know that I said that if they can continue to win every single game at home and at least maybe pick up some point on the road, that they may be making the playoffs. Maybe not. I mean, right now RSL is actually now in 6th place and just above the red line, and you wonder, if they keep dropping points at home, this team could maybe find themselves looking outside of the playoffs. And the only way they can try to put pressure off of their home form is that they got to start finding a way to win on the road. Now, fortunately for them, the next game that they're going to be playing on the road is against my team, the Quakes. And, that is probably a game that they potentially can get a win, knowing the Quakes are really bad right now. But at the same time, they really need to start to figure out their role for him. I think as much as they want to heavily rely on their home form to try to get themselves across the line, it might be not enough. Like they need to figure that role form out. They need to, like, I know that they probably won't have to like win 3 or 4 games on the road so that they can make the playoffs. I just think that they maybe need to win at least 1 or 2, or just get some points on the road, because right now this team is not getting anything on the road. Whenever this RSL team go on the road, they look like they're the worst team in the league. And for Colorado, definitely a big draw for them. And now that they got Kellen Acosta, which I think that's a pretty big signing and definitely improve their midfield. Maybe they can use that and maybe build on later on in terms of some other guys that they might potentially sign, although they did spend a lot of money in the winter transfer window to get a lot of those championship kind of player onto their team, and it's just pretty clear that it has not worked out. So I don't know if Colorado is going to be very aggressive in the summer transfer window, and I don't know, are they really going to find a replacement for Dominic Obagi? I mean, yes, it is kind of a painful loss for them to lose Baji, which is a very good goal scorer, but Baji has not scored a lot of goals so far for the Rapids this season, and he's been he had a hat trick earlier in the season, but that's about it. Like, he hasn't really produced a lot for this team, and I think maybe they're gonna have to rely on other guys on this team that can potentially score the goals on them, and that's been also kind of the issue for the Rapids. I mean, they have not been a team that has scored a lot of goals so far this season, which is kind of expected if you look at how this Rapids team would be coming into this season. But moving on to the final 2 game, Portland drew 2-2 against the Impact, and as crazy as this might sound, the Impact should have won this game. I mean, the Impact should have ended Portland 14-game unbeaten streak, and goals, of course, in this game. Sofia Tadia with another goal. He is just on a very good hot streak right now with 4 goals in 5 games. Mancuso scored again. But this is where I talked about why did Montreal should have got 3 points in this game, because of all people that could have lost the game for the Impacts and could have not get all 3 points for them, it would be Evan Bush. And in this game, Evan Bush single-handedly cost the Impact all 3 points, which is quite crazy to say because Bush has been one of the best goalkeeper in the league so far this season. I think he's also saved the most shots so far this season in MLS, and there's been times where he has single-handedly kept this Impact team in a game and just not getting completely blown out. And in this game, he was anything but at his best. Like, the 2 goals that he conceded were absolute howler. The first goal, it was a ball that was popped up after one of the Timber player basically hit a very weak shot, and it looked like Bush was just going to catch it easily, and he kind of did catch it, but then he just spilled it, and Almerteros was right there to tap that one in. And then the second goal, the ball once again was kind of popped up after he looked like he was going to catch that one, and I thought he was at least going to try to maybe recover and try to catch that ball that he kind of popped it up, but instead he didn't. Valeri beats him to it, and yeah, those are 2 very soft goals to concede. And as much as this is a good point for Montreal against a Timbers team that is just probably the hottest team so far in the league, to concede those kind of goals and the way that they let that one slip away will be really, really painful for them to deal with. And as much as the Impact are now climbed themselves all the way up to 5th, which is the highest they are so far this season, they could have had that 5th position all by themselves if they would have got 3 points in this. And by the way, they are currently tied with New England in that 5th spot. And as for Portland, well, they got out of jail in this one. This defense had no answer for for this Montreal attack. And one thing I will say about Montreal and what I've been very impressed by the impact is that other guys are actually stepping up for this team. And it's not just Piatti, the one that is doing all the work for this team. I mean, I always criticize Montreal, the fact that Piatti is like the only guy that is doing things for that team and he's single-handedly carrying this impact team. But now you start seeing guys like Sofia Taidia and Matteo Mancuso starting to score goals. And, you know, if they can continue this kind of way, then, yeah, maybe this team is going to make the playoffs. And it's hard to believe to say that, consider what happened a couple of months ago when they were definitely in a crisis going on. But, you know, again, this is a game that Montreal should have won. And, you know, I hope that at the end of the year, this won't be the game that they will look back and say that if they would have won this game, they would have been in the playoffs right now. But now, finally, we wrap up in a game that is probably the most surprising result out of all the games that we have so far in MLS. And that, of course, is Minnesota 5, LAFC 1. Yes, you did not read that wrong. Minnesota absolutely destroyed LAFC 5-1, and this was the same LAFC team that were on a 9-game unbeaten streak. And yes, I get that this LAFC team was also a team that Bob Bradley decided to put a couple of his reserve player and not go with his strongest squad and not have guys like Vela, Dio, and also Orania in the squad. But I definitely did not expect LAFC to just completely crumble like that against Minnesota. And you got to give credit to Minnesota in terms of this performance. I mean, this is probably the best performance I have ever seen Minnesota play in all the times that they've been in MLS. I mean, this was just a complete team performance. It wasn't just Quintero, the one that is just carrying this team. It was other players like Ramirez, Ibarra, that is scoring the goals for them. And yeah, I mean, this was a massive, massive win for Minnesota. And this is kind of a win that will really just stamp and kind of send a message to all the critics say that they're not going to make the playoffs and that this is a team that maybe could potentially make the playoffs. Although one thing I will say about this Minnesota team is that, you know, one, they need to definitely get better in terms of the defense, because the only goal that they concede in this game should have been easily avoided. And if they would have cleared the ball away from LAFC, then that goal should have never happened. Phil Howard wouldn't have able to slot that one into the back post. But at the same time, you know, if this attack is just that kind of, if this is kind of the attack that we're going to see throughout the rest of the season for Minnesota, and if it can continue this kind of free-flowing way that they've been playing, then heck, they are going to be definitely making the playoffs. But the other thing that also made me concerned about this team, and maybe they might not have enough, is that they do not have a lot of home game left. And home games has been the key source of why this Minnesota team could be in this discussion of making the playoffs, because they have been winning a lot of home games. In fact, they have won their last 4 home games, but now they're going to be going on the road a lot in this last couple of months, including a stretch where they have to go on the road for 5 straight games. And that is going to be one that could really determine the fate of this team, because as long as if they win all their home games but they don't win their road games, I don't think this team will make the playoffs. I think they'll just fell short for it. And you know, it's sad to say that they're probably not going to be making the playoffs because of that, because I think this Minnesota team deserved to be in the playoffs. They are so much better than they were a year ago. And heck, yes, they still have the issue in the midfield and in the defense, but their attack is just so much more exciting, and which is why you start seeing a lot of Minnesota fans still stick around, because they're loving this attacking style of play that the team is putting display. And we're gonna see if they can, of course, continue that and maybe get some wins or get some crucial points on the road. And as for LAFC, well, like I said, the gamble that Bob Bradley trying to putting his reserve clearly did not pay off. In fact, it kind of just end up in terms of an embarrassing blowout loss against Minnesota. But now they're going to have to try to wipe that one away, and they have to focus in their next match against the Galaxy in that El Trafico, and that is going to be a massive, massive game. I mean, both of these teams coming into El Trafico are very, very good, and that is definitely going to be the one that I will, of course, keep a close eye on. And also, that one is going to be on Thursday, too, so I'm definitely going to be watching that one. But either way, guys, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you do, make sure you guys leave a like, smash that subscribe button. Like I said, I will be doing the preview right after when I upload this video. And yeah, I, of course, will see you guys next time.